All right. Welcome to another Grit and Grime basketball podcast. I'm your host, as always, David Sago, here with Michael Downey and Thomas Arnold.
Hello.
How you guys doing? You good? You good? You feeling good?
Mm-hmm.
Ready to talk?
Excellent.
Ready to talk a little basketball?
Yeah, am I allowed to talk now?
That's up to Mike. It's up to Mike.
We'll allow it.
All
Thank
right.
It'd be a pretty weird podcast otherwise.
Yeah.
Just with an overseer. You're an oracle. So let's just jump straight in. We've only got two series, or is it series, Michael? Correct me, please.
Series.
We've got two series left. In the West, we have the Lakers against the Denver Nuggets, but we are going to start by talking about the Miami Heat versus the Boston Celtics. So this series is currently 2-1 in favor of Miami Heat, who took both of the first two games against the proverbial home court. And then the Celtics snatched game 3. In all 3 games, I think, the Celtics were up double digits. And in the first 2, Miami used a 2-3 zone. Peculiar because the forwards were at the top of the zone. And they used that to completely frazzle the Celtics. But the Celtics responded and have started breaking down that zone and were able to just about hold on in game 3 and get the win. Are you guys surprised by how this series has gone so far?
I picked Miami to go through last week.
Okay.
So I was kind of happy they won the first 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you'd asked me before the playoffs started, would I think it would go like this, then I would have been very surprised. But seeing how Miami have been in the playoffs, then I'm not as surprised.
Tom?
I agree with that. So I think did I pick Miami to go through? I think
No,
my heart says Miami. My brain says Celtic. I don't know. I think it's gonna go to 6 or 7 games, so probably 7. So I'm not surprised at all. It's going the way it's going. So yeah, I want to see Jimmy Butler in the finals and get the MVP finals he deserves.
Deserves for what?
Hot take.
I mean, you could definitely still go either way. I'm not sort of counting Miami through yet. I think it is. Yeah, as Tom said, I think it's going to go 6 or 7 for sure.
Yeah, I think another big change that happened with game 3 was the return of Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
He actually played like 31 minutes in his first game back, and he only had 6 points, but his influence was definitely felt on the game. Just the fact that the Celtics had another playmaker on the floor, another player that could not only dribble and pass, but that could make decisions on the court and be a two-way player for them. It meant that they didn't have to play their backup bigs as much as they had earlier in the series. And it was another shooter that the Heat had to worry about on defense. Do you think that was just the little extra boost that the Celtics needed in order to sort of turn the series on its head, similar to how Gary Harris, for example, turned the Utah Jazz series in the Nuggets' favor?
I think we've got to start respecting Spo a bit more. There's the opportunity to react to the change that Hayward might bring. So it might get them. It might be the sort of thing that does get them a couple of games. I don't think that Miami are a particularly deep team. So having an extra player to give you depth on Celtics is a bit of an advantage swing. But if it leads to a change in play style, then I think Sport will implement something to react.
I don't know. I don't know if Hayward's return changed much. I mean, because he's not somebody that needs to score points. 6 points is very little. But he, like you said, Dave, he can change the game in different ways by grabbing rebounds and trying to organize the offense differently and maybe make it so that there's a bit more ball movement for the Celtic. I think what changed is probably mentally for the Celtics. I think did you guys hear about the after game scuffle in the changing rooms from I think apparently Smart? I think that's something that probably woke up the rest of the team, and usually find that if that happens in game like now before game 3, the two options after something happening like that in the changing rooms is either the team playing a lot better and for like for 48 minutes, or they just tank. If they're weak mentally, they would have tanked. So they're sure they have a lot of resilience and a lot of tough guys on the Celtics team. I think that's where probably to me the difference was made. Is probably just they finally got their head into the game and just went, okay, we need to move our asses, collective asses, and get in there and get in their faces.
Yeah, because that's something that that I think needed to be highlighted about the Nuggets Clippers series as well. It's the fact that they have built a double-digit lead. So they're doing something right, clearly. They're doing something right, but they're giving up that lead. And I think that's what led to the frustration. It would be different if they were just getting beat, like just beat from post to post, from the start of the game to the end of the game, because then it means that clearly either the game plan isn't working or they're just not playing well enough. They're not making shots, or something more overwhelming, something that you can't necessarily change. Whereas when you've got double-digit leads and you're repeatedly giving them up in the fourth, you can fix things basically because you're doing something right already. So maybe it was mental, and that was what they needed to do. That's what they needed to have. I didn't read too much into it in terms of chemistry or anything like that. I think it's quite a positive thing to be able to say how you feel when when a team is frustrated. And a lot of the time, I mean, we criticize the Clippers for not showing any of those same emotions. Maybe it was going on behind the scenes, but I mean, there was that article about Trez and Paul George, but I think it can happen in a constructive way.
Yeah, the reaction depends on who is on your team. Depends at what point of their career they are. The Celtics are pretty young still, and none of them have won anything. Yeah. Not saying that on the Clippers, Leonard's won, but in terms of where they were in their career, they're all 30-something. They've been around. So I'm sure if you were to have the same reaction and trying to pull the same, motivational speech at the end of the game, it's probably not as well received as it would be from a team who's got like a bunch of 20-something who want to prove that they can win. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they're young, but they're also like very professional. Like I think it was between Jaylen Brown and Smart, wasn't it? And they kind of were asking a lot of questions in the press conference as you'd expect. But Jaylen Brown came out and was saying like Marcus Smart is one of the sort of key players that we have. It's fine. It's team. Team above sort of high.
And that's what we mean by it coming from the right person, at the right time. It's his that is part of the value of having him on the team, that he can step up and say something like that, and it has the positive effect that it should. And Jaylen Brown was the player of Game 3. It was his
Yep.
defense on Bam Adebayo. They made a few adjustments in how they played Bam on the pick and roll, because in Game 2 he had something like 5 dunks in the third quarter when they rallied. And this time they were much better able to contain him. Again, Gordon Hayward on the defensive end. Just having someone who could play both ways and actually fatigue them on the other end meant that they didn't have to play Semi Ojeleye. And yeah, the Celtics seem to look more like the team that we think they are or thought they were. And I think it has I do think the bringing back Hayward and having this chat has the potential to really tip this thing on its head. You're right, we do need to give Spo his credit in terms of adjustments. One of the adjustments that's been suggested is that Jimmy Butler stopped doing his, I'm going to let everyone get theirs for the first 3 quarters and get comfortable, and then I'm going to assert myself in the fourth, because in Game 3, by the time the fourth came, there was nothing to claw back, or very little chance that they could claw it back. Do you think, I'll throw it to you first, Tom, do you think Jimmy Butler should either come out of the gates firing, or at least start asserting himself sooner than the fourth quarter?
He's got to start sooner, I think. It's just, even if you don't have to go, straight from the start, from the tip-off, at least from the beginning of the third quarter, in the second half, earlier than that, because he's done that in Game 3, where he just, usually it's around, like you said, the start of the fourth quarter, when he just, taking some shots and making himself, feel like he's playing for himself, passing maybe a little bit less and just taking more shots. But I'll start earlier in the third quarter, because you can't leaving it for the fourth quarter can, like you say, it leaves little room for to make any changes on the scoreboard. So you can't. I would start not from tip off, but from 12 minutes from the end of the third quarter. So he's not. I think he's trying to. At times, it feels like he's trying to involve his teammate too much. Okay, Dragic is kind of their option number one offensively now, because he's so well. But he's still, to me, the MVP of like the Miami Heat's MVP. Like, he's the best player on that team. And he's the boss of the team as well. He should start taking more shots, and because he's not a bad shooter. He's not a bad offensive player. So he can, and no one's going to say, Jimmy, give up the ball, stop shooting. He's all right. He's got to start, I think, putting more points on the board as well. Especially when Dragic in Game 3, I think, how many points did he get? I think it was his lowest total, was 11 points, something like that. I think it was pretty low.
I'm not sure the exact number.
Because they got smart on him, and they got...
that was another adjustment, yeah.
Just an adjustment as well. Hang on, let me just try to find the stats, but it was his lowest scoring game of the final Eastern Conference Finals. So especially if Dragic is not able to score over 20, you've got to have somebody else who's going to take over and score his share of points. So definitely start a lot earlier than that. Allow your team to turn it around, maybe in the third or.
Mike?
Yeah. No, I mean, I disagree with it as a plan A. Basically, I think it should always be a plan B. You mentioned Dragic. Dragic has been sort of pretty incredible, apart from the last game in the playoffs. You've got Hero, you've got Robinson, you've got Bam, like all around. Plan A should be get everybody going, basically. Then halftime or sort of early in the third, as you were saying, Tom, you make the assessment. All right, is this actually working? Are the guys hitting their shots? Do we need to switch it up a bit? And it's at that point that you kind of, for me, it's at that point that you should be thinking, right, Jimmy, it's go time.
Let's get going. Yeah, I think it's important for your star player or your or or sense rather when it's time, when the team needs you to get a bucket. Something that the late Kobe Bryant used to talk about. He used to talk about how clutch shots aren't always in the fourth quarter. They're not always in the last 2 minutes of the game. Sometimes it can be that the opposition team is making a run in the second quarter, and you need to sort of stop the bleeding. Or your teammates are starting to lose confidence in their shot. They don't want to shoot it, so you take a few shots just to sort of stabilize the game, calm everyone down, and then sort of encourage them to pick themselves up and reassure them that you can still win this game. We can still do this thing, and I think that's important to have in your star player, for them to be able to know when those moments are, and to make a shot or get to the line in those moments and take the pressure off their teammates. And he's done a good job of that in the past. It's just happened to be in the fourth quarter because the games have been close. But I think if he can sense those moments a bit better, if he could have done that in the second quarter of game 3, maybe got to the line a few times and got some points on the board just to sort of stem the bleeding when the Celtics made their run, maybe the game wouldn't have gotten so far out of hand that he couldn't instilled some confidence in the team, let them get back to it for a quarter, and then asserted himself again in the fourth.
Do you think he's offensively talented enough to do that to the Celtics?
Do you know, he it's his ability to get to the line. It's
right.
So weird that he makes these huge shots in the fourth quarter, because he doesn't have a good shooting percentage from 3 in particular. But he's made he did it in the Pacers game when it got close. He did it in the Bucks series when it got close. He would just shoot a 3 and make it, and you would just be like, where does this come from in the fourth quarter? Because it's not there at any other point. And then the other thing is, what he has done to keep his true shooting percentage high is gotten to the line at an incredible clip. He's one of the ones that has adopted a lot of the Harden tactics of getting to the line and baiting fouls. We saw that a different trend a few years back with big men shooting 3. I think the trend this year has been guards and small forwards, wing players, adopting some of the foul baiting tactics and getting themselves to the line. And he's been excellent at it. I think he might have led the league in free throws this year over Harden.
There was
I'm
a
not
point
sure.
when he was
ahead, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think he may not be the most gifted in terms of scoring baskets. I think with me, I don't know if it's the same for you guys. When I watch a Heat games, the Jimmy Butler baskets and Crowder's basket, when they hit a 3, it feels like it's more than a 3 because it's not there. Yeah. It's always, in terms of timing, when they make one, it's like shit. That's like the dagger. Well, that's the one that's going to turn the game around, because you're not used to. But the percentages they're not super high, so you just think, damn, if they make that, if Butler and Crowder start making those, damn, you've got the other guys behind Dragic
going our way.
Hero, they're gonna get into it as well. Yeah. So that's what, to me, it's like mentally, in terms of being on the other team, on the receiving end of it, it's like, shit, if Butler makes 1 or 2, they're not 3-pointers, they're almost 4-pointers to me, because they feel like, because he's the leader of the other team. He doesn't have to score, what's his average, 17 a game, 16 a game, something like that. It's not
something
huge
like that.
As soon as a guy like him gets to 20, 25, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I looked it up. Dragic did have 11 points, which horrible 20% shooting.
Well, first team all defense. Marcus Smart will do that for you.
I was going to say, man.
Marcus Smart.
It's really good.
So I think we're all in agreement that this series we're in for the long haul.
Yeah.
So I'm
going to call Miami in 6.
You're gonna re-predict.
every week.
I had Miami last time.
Yeah,
I'm just saying Miami win next game, then Celtics, and then Miami second.
I'm thinking I'm siding with Mike on that one. I'm going 6 as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm
Flip-flop,
sticking to
man.
my,
Flip-flop.
sticking to my Celtics in 7.
Oof.
I respect it.
I'm sticking to it.
I respect it, but I disagree. Respectfully disagree.
So we switch coasts and we go across to the Western Conference Finals, where my Lakers are up 2-0 on the Denver Nuggets. Just about. Game 1 was a blowout in favor of the Lakers, obviously. And that was followed up by game 2, where the Lakers did build a double-digit lead. But then the Nuggets, as they're prone to do, made a furious comeback in the fourth quarter and took the lead on a Jamal Murray 3. And then that cued a frantic possession, which ended in Jamal Murray blocking Danny Green's 2-point jumper from the baseline. And then Rondo told Vogel he wanted to take the inbounds pass. The play was for LeBron. The Lakers didn't have a timeout, so they didn't set up the play. It was something that they know that they should run in those situations, baseline, with the game on the line. It's for a LeBron shot. Rondo, AD said Rondo kept his eye on. He was making eye contact with Rondo the whole time. Plumlee runs away from AD. AD gets loose on the wing and makes the buzzer-beating game winner. I wish I was watching live. I wasn't. One of those moments. It's one of those moments, but I wasn't watching live. So it didn't have the same effect for me. How did you guys feel about the shot, first of all? Tom, you can start us out.
If I was watching the highlights, I was like, I can see that one coming. I can tell. For some reason, I don't know. I've not seen a LeBron buzzer beater for a long time. I think
It's been a while.
But AD seems like the kind of guy that would take those shots. It was a bit weird how I think Jokic was a bit late running back towards him, I think, on that shot.
He was actually guarding Rondo on the inbounds.
Right?
Yeah. So he ran from the baseline to the 3-point line and got there before the guy that was guarding AD and Plumlee.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it's a good effort, but
it's it definitely was.
It's some reason watching the highlights, I was like, I'm sure they scored. I could obviously watching the highlights without knowing the final score, so something was like, yeah, that's his shot because that's what he left New Orleans for. He wants to go into that big team and make those buzzer beater. But again, like it was a typical Nuggets game again. It's like going down big and then coming back in the fourth and making those crazy shots, and then bang, they lost. Like they win games. They got killed by last second buzzer beater. But it was beautiful one again. It's like that's when you realize that, man, LeBron's got some good teammates, like AD.
He's got one.
He's got one. Well, it's always had this big that can shoot threes, and that's again, that's paying off for him. But yeah, I'm not mad at the Lakers being up 2-0. I think they'll make a great champion, David. We'll talk about it.
They haven't won anything yet.
Wow.
Haven't won anything yet.
Sure. I don't know, but what do you feel, Mike? The thing is,
I think it's going to be back-to-back 3-1 comebacks.
Yeah.
No, I just it's kind of hard to see the Nuggets actually coming back, but they keep doing it, so I don't want to like count them out.
Yeah.
But just AD and LeBron, and then Rondo seems to have found it again. I don't know if there's another player in the league that sort of steps it up as much as he does in the playoffs. Howard is playing well again. You know, if they're going to be clicking like that, or if it's just the matchups are sort of working out in their favor, then yeah, they're looking pretty good.
I just love Dwight's effort on the bench to trash talk Jokic pretty much.
That was so extra. He was go home. He was shouting, "Go home, go home, go home, go home." And then he said he wants to let Jokic know that he's gonna be there wherever he is. He might even show up outside of his hotel room, just so that he knows that he's gonna be there, right there,
in his face.
It seems real xenophobic, no?
In these
there was an American flag.
Go home, we don't like you.
Proud to be an American.
What I actually liked was when AD scored the buzz beater, he turned around and shouted Kobe.
Yeah.
He turned around and went Kobe. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
They were saying that they can't lose in those Mamba jerseys too.
The uniforms. Yeah, I didn't even realize that they were wearing them for that. That's dope. That's a cool moment.
Yeah.
But I touched on it, but you have to point the finger at Plumlee. I mean, you lose as a team, right? But he ran away from AD. when you watch it back, he had a conversation with Jeremy Grant about if LeBron sets a screen, then we switch the screen, which you should do on the last possession, right? You switch everything just because there's no time to get around screens. Someone will get too much of a window. But then when you watch the play actually unfold, AD doesn't go near LeBron. He runs right along the top in a straight line from where he starts out on one wing to the opposite wing and shoots the ball. And Plumlee, instead of running in a straight line from where he started out to where AD shoots the ball, he runs towards LeBron and then points at Grant to switch. And it's like, you have to wait for the play to unfold, Mason?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching it now. It's mad. It's actually mad. He's just pointing a finger like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, there's no time for this. It's just
and runs to LeBron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a switch that never came.
Yeah.
It's all right in the first quarter.
Rather than actually just watching. Yeah. It was a really weird pass from Rondo, right? It was like really low.
Yeah, because he was guarded. Rondo likes a bounce pass. He does bounce passes when he doesn't need to. And he also likes shovel passes. He does shovel passes when he doesn't need to do shovel passes. But shoot, went in, didn't it?
Which
it worked. It worked.
And that's a testament to how good AD's shooting three. Like he grabs the ball literally, it's like below his knee level, and he's got time to get it up. It's just like these shots are so difficult to make. You know, how many elbows have I not hit doing that? It's
for some reason I tend to make them more when I catch them low, and I have no idea why. It must have something to do with like involving the legs or something. If you're grabbing it low, then you're bending your knees more.
It's possible.
Yeah. So they get through. Lakers get through by the skin of their teeth. How do we see the rest of the series going?
The heart says 4-3 Nuggets, but the brain says 4-1 Lakers. No, I think Lakers are taking that one. I don't know. The thing is, I've said that the last two rounds where I'm like, nah, it's dead.
Yeah,
you were right about the Lakers every time.
It's true. I mean, it's true. It's gotta be right at some point. I think the Lakers are going to be too much on that one. So yeah, 4-1.
Mike,
I think Nuggets tonight will take it.
Yeah, it's a bit tough because I haven't seen as much from Jamal Murray as we had. So I think he's due again.
Mhm.
I think the Lakers are better. I think they are the better team and they're playing better at the moment. So I can't pick the Nuggets. Do I go 4-1 or 4-2? That's my question.
Going five. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think I will. Yeah, I think 5.
Yeah. Go on, Dave.
So looking at Jamal Murray, for game 1, he had 21 points on 58% shooting, but he was in foul trouble. Game 2, he had 25 points on 42% shooting. He did take 9 threes and only make 22% of them. The Lakers have played against Damian Lillard, James Harden, and now Jamal Murray in the playoffs. So I think there is a sort of thing of, as much as they don't play exactly the same, and the Lakers haven't played them exactly the same, they're getting used to dealing with high offense, high octane, high volume scorers at the guard position. And I think as much as he shot the ball well in the first game, and less so in the second game, I think there is an adjustment period that the Lakers are going through in sort of figuring him out a bit. He was probably I think that he was their highest player in terms of plus minus, with a plus 16 in game 2. But the 4 minutes that he sat, it was like minus 20 something. They were absolutely terrible. Whereas in game 1, when he was out, actually Monty Morris stepped in and played really well. But I think where the Lakers are really winning the game is not only are they doing a decent job of containing Jokic and Murray by going at them on the defensive end, they are locking down everyone else. The role players are getting nothing. Like from game 7, where I think Gary Harris, I don't think Paul Millsap did, but who was the other one? Jeremy Grant. And I think there was one more role player who had double digits in game 7. I've got it here. It won't take a second. Who had double digits in game 7. And I think all 3 of those players scored the same as or more than Kawhi Leonard in that series, in that game. Sorry. That was it. It was those 2. Yeah, just those 2. Whereas in this series, I think Gary Harris is averaging about 4 points. Jeremy Grant's averaging like 6 or 8. And Millsap is also in the single digits. As long as the Lakers can keep a lid on all the other role players, it's going to take like a 50-point performance from Jamal Murray or a 30 or 35-point 10 assist performance from Jokic for the Nuggets to get over the line if the Lakers play well.
That's usually a coaching decision from the opposing team that when you've got like a 1 or 2 great scorer, do you let him roam as just let him score at will and just but you cut off the rest of the team, or do you try to cut him off and let the rest of the team play? I think I'm always in favor of let the guy who can score because you're gonna get, unless it's Kobe and scores 80 on your drop 80. But like usually you'll maybe get a 50 points, but like if that guy scores 50 and you can limit the rest, the bench and the rest of the starting 5 to a bare minimum, chances are you probably will take the game. So yeah, it's always tricky. I think that's what the Lakers are doing, right? They're just trying to cut off the rest of the team, like you say, with trying to kill Harris and making sure Jokic can be controlled a little bit more. But I haven't seen anything defensively that would suggest they're trying to take what's his face?
Murray
out for the last 2 games. I didn't see that happening.
But they haven't really needed to.
No, you don't. Yeah, exactly. They didn't need to, but I guess I'd be curious to see what the result would be if Harry scores, or Murray scores 50 or 45, something like that. I like to see the rest of the stats, the Nuggets. See if
it would depend on what everyone else did, right? And also it depends on the effect that has on the team. If he scores 50 and everyone's like, if they're feeding him and it's galvanizing the team, then like you said, that 50 can feel like 70 in the playoffs. And also it depends on what the overall score is. Like
but you'd like to see the Nuggets not being down by 20 at some point. Like they've been doing in every single game now. That'd be good.
Absolutely. And it's about these furious comebacks. Like, why can't you flick the switch earlier so that it doesn't get out of hand? But I think this game in particular, the comeback was as much about the Lakers as it was about the Nuggets, because they just started turning the ball over so much in the second half. I think they had 24 turnovers, which they haven't had. I don't think anyone's had 24 turnovers in the playoffs since like 2013 or something like that. So the fact that the Lakers were able to hang on and steal this one must really hurt the Nuggets, because if there was a game where they had a chance to just take it from the Lakers, this was it. And the Lakers played badly in the second half and managed to hold on and keep it. I think LeBron was 2 of 9 in the second half, having scored 20 points in the first. And he's not going to just fall off like that on a second half in the playoffs. It's just not going to happen frequently. So I think they really missed one. one. And this series reminds me of the Magic Finals series, the Lakers Magic Finals series in 2009, where the first 2 games are really close.
Yeah, but then it wasn't anymore.
But then, you miss your chance.
Yeah.
And the Lakers hold on for a win, and they're able to just go on from there. And the score line, or the series line, the number of games doesn't look competitive, but it was competitive until it wasn't. So I don't know. I'm also weary of counting out the Nuggets. The Lakers haven't won anything. They've just, as AD said, taken care of home court, whatever that means. And they still need to close out the Nuggets, which has proved to be the hardest thing to do in the 2020 finals in the Orlando bubble.
We'll see. We'll see.
So Lakers in 4.
So after talking about it for 20 minutes, let's discard everything. Fuck it.
I mean, we haven't seen a LeBron game yet. This whole playoffs, I don't think, right? So if they do start to look like they're in trouble.
Yeah. He's had a couple of like assertive games where he dominated and he was the best player on the floor for sure. But in terms of like LeBron games, no, I don't think he's really had to put the hammer down yet.
It's like what you were saying with Jimmy Butler. Like he's taken on a leadership role without necessarily needing to take on best player or best sort of statistical offense sort of leader. It's more, I'll do what the team needs to get the W.
Yeah, I think he's averaging like 28 and 8 on the series. The scoring is down by like 5 points from his playoff average. And in this playoffs, not overall.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's probably even higher overall. So he isn't really asserting himself in terms of scoring outside of what he did in the first half of game 2. But AD's averaging like, I think it's 34 and 10 or something like that on the series. So he's clearly seeing that he is the one that can destroy and put the boots to this Nuggets team, and he's doing just that.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes there's no need to score 70 a game. Just need to be a leader on different.
Just 69.
Just 69. He's there vocally. He's the supreme leader on the court. So, there's no need for him to score 40 every night. If he's got 20, but then AD score 40, it'll be just fine. Just fine.
As long as there's a W in the column. I'm gonna be my conservative self and say Lakers in 6.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
It's a win-win.
I'm always cautious. Always cautious. Always conservative. Except for when I vote.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to a little news beat. The MVP trophy was handed out. What a ceremony it was. Huge moment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They needed to sort out these awards, man. Just do them after the regular season. As soon as possible after the regular season and get them out of the way. Because all of this end of after the final stuff, no one cares anymore.
Drag them out as well.
Yeah. I mean, if they'd gone back to the old model of the MVP being handed out during the first round, that would have been fine. I know 1 or 2 MVPs have been eliminated by then, but
it's super rare. It's Nowitzki.
It's rare.
It's the last one. Dirk's the last one. That was like 20.
Yeah.
Was it?
It was the We Believe Warriors, wasn't it?
2013? Nah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I was
Before.
No. It must have been before the ring, right? Was it 2010 or 2009?
Oh, it must be
I thought-
2009.
Oh no, when did he get his
I thought
MVP? He was MVP in
09, wasn't it?
07.
Really? Oh, God,
Yeah.
is that old?
It was 07,
Nah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because Kobe was 08.
Yeah.
LeBron
Yeah,
was
yeah.
09, and then LeBron won a bunch. Yeah, so it was 07. And yeah, it's very rare that the MVP doesn't lead their team to the second round. But they instead of giving Giannis the MVP during the first round, they decided they would wait more rounds and catch him while he's eliminated and on a holiday.
Was on the plane.
I haven't seen it. At all.
Neither have I. And I don't care to. I don't care to. And that's the problem. But I wanted to actually discuss what the MVP means, because LeBron came out and said he's not necessarily mad that he lost. Liar. He's mad that he didn't get more first place votes. Right? He was mad that the margin was as big as it was.
Come on.
And I think part of the reason for that is because there is no criteria. Some people that vote, I've listened to too many podcasts today to know exactly who it was. I think it was Kevin Arnovitz was saying, when you vote, there's no criteria on the ballot. You just click a button and it gives you a list of every single player in the league, and you vote for MVP that way. Whereas with other awards, like the Heisman Trophy, for example, in the NCAA for college football players, there is criteria. There's certain things that the Heisman Trophy winner has to embody, certain things that they have to achieve in order to get that award. Whereas when it comes to the MVP, some people might vote based on best player on the best team. Other people might vote based on if you remove this player from their team and remove the best player from every other team, which team would be worse, right? So if you have bad teammates or worse teammates, but you lead them to high success, then that's what the MVP is. I just wanted to discuss a bit about what you guys think the MVP is, or what you think it should be. And do you think they should be set criteria? I'll start us off. Just
what are the criteria? You were saying they had criteria in NCAA. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I can look it up.
Football.
Yeah, it's American football. Yeah.
Because then that can be defined with maybe something having to do with school and
I think there is some stuff about the type of person you are,
which I don't really care about in the professional.
Hey, most valuable player.
You got A's all across the board. MVP. No.
7 charity events. Yep.
So it says the Heisman Memorial Trophy annually recognizes the outstanding college football player whose performance best exhibits the pursuit of excellence with integrity. Integrity matters. The winners of the trophy epitomize great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work. The Trust's mission is to ensure the continuation and integrity of the award. Blah, 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 blah.
It's a lot of words.
Yeah, but essentially it's you're a great player, you work hard, and you're a good person. Right?
You're not going to bring shame to our organization.
Exactly. But I mean, if you were to convert it to the NBA, I think if it was the Heisman Trophy winner or the Heisman MVP, then we would be considering things like how LeBron handled Kobe's death in calling Adam Silver and saying we're not going to play the games, and making a speech, and speaking on China, for example, right? Like all of that would then be incorporated into the season that he's had, and speaking out on Black Lives Matter and things like that. All of that would be encompassed in the award. So it's not just best player, it's best player and best person. I'm not saying it should be that.
No.
I'm not saying it should be that. But sometimes part of what we attribute the MVP as is someone who's overcome adversity, whether that's playing without the second star, or overcoming something, or bouncing back from something the year before, and things like that. Emotional things sometimes get involved in the narratives for MVP.
Yeah. I don't think I'd be comfortable with.
I think there's definitely
giving an MVP trophy that, I don't know, it seems to me like it's on the court only. That's where you should win it. Like off the court stuff, I don't really care, unless obviously if you murder someone. But if the guy is a massive dickhead, but then he scores 45 a game, with a 80 and 2 regular season, like, do you give it to the other guys than charity?
Criteria, maybe in the past.
But you know what I mean? It feels like it would be like some sort of, they should rename it like the Disney MVP Awards, something. Everybody's beautiful. Everybody. I don't know. I don't think it. Obviously, so you're taking the example of LeBron. I think everything he's done off the court is absolutely amazing. Like opening a school, I think that's the best thing he's done to me. But does that make him more deserving of an MVP this season because he's spoken out against different social issues? I don't think, to me, again, I don't think like it should impact anything. I think you should stick to on-court effort only. Again, yeah, of course, it's nice if the person you're willing to vote for and the guy who's on your team is this great person that is willing to, move things forward and be maybe more progressive, and I don't know, do all these kind of like social actions. That's always appreciated. But I don't know, in terms of just pure basketball, in terms of sport, it's if who was the absolute madman on the arenas on the Wizard, absolute madman, but what a basketball player, going the other way, taking the other example.
Gil.
The biggest one is Jordan, right? Like, Jordan cared about basketball and just basketball, and was a dick to his teammates.
Absolute bastard.
But he got the job done. I think
And then so you could also
there's a
argue
certain amount
Kobe.
about
You could
Yeah.
argue Kobe was like that because Kobe
Yeah.
had this bastard also persona around him, but actually he's one of the most caring, loved person of the court.
Yeah.
Like every single player would tell you he's the best man ever, like the best person I've ever met, like giving advice and stuff like that. But he always had that kind of aura around him that he was a dickhead, but he wasn't. So that kind of it.
I don't think you'd have everybody saying that about Jordan.
No, it's quite the opposite.
No, but there was definitely when you look at those two personalities, they did the same thing. Kobe did those things that Jordan did with his teammates. He absolutely did.
Do you think he
No,
took it
I
as far?
know he did.
Yeah.
I know he did.
He didn't come to blows with anybody like Kurt and Jordan.
He almost came to blows with Shaq, but that was
Shaq,
over.
yep.
That was over some comments that he made about Shaq's personal life.
But
he was just as much of a hardhead, of a dickhead, if that's how you want to phrase it. He was just as hard on his teammates as Jordan was, because he followed Jordan's example.
Yeah.
And he wanted to win, but he wasn't in a winning situation his whole career.
Yeah.
So when he went through that period where the Lakers were making the playoffs but not playing well, it reached fever pitch, right? Because then you're not backing it up with the winning. Like throughout, Jordan backed it up by being the best player in the league and winning, whereas Kobe couldn't. Right? He couldn't drag those teams to the finals. He just couldn't. I don't think Jordan could either. But that wasn't the situation that Jordan was in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is an interesting comparison. But like you said, Tom, where the difference was made was Kobe reached out to other players, or allowed other players to reach out to him. He sought to learn from them. They learned from him, like the JJ Redick story that he tells on his podcast about Kobe having a shooting session with him and actually watching what JJ Redick was doing when JJ thought that he was going to go there and watch what Kobe was doing. That's where they differ. It's in the learning. But if you talk like personality wise, charisma wise, Jordan had more charisma than Kobe. He was a more liked person, even though he was being a dickhead to his teammates. As a person and around the league and to reporters and all of those things, Kobe was considered more of a tough personality to get along with than Jordan was. So it's different with everyone's different.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's just about how it's portrayed and how it's read, because they didn't view it as him being a dickhead to his teammates back then.
And that's why I think you shouldn't be those criteria shouldn't be kind of added into an MVP vote. I think it's so easy also from the media to not manipulate but kind of frame you into a certain way.
Yeah,
and that's very hard to get out of the perception.
I just think that if you start to bring in the good person sort of argument about things, it could get very twisted especially in America, with things like the Black Lives Matter movement. I think like most people and everybody that we sort of associate ourselves with are very supportive of that, but the way that it is being twisted by certain people would have them believe that that's a black mark on your sort of personality if you support that. And if you speak out against police brutality, if you start to bring in personality questions around it, I would be very concerned about that sort of stuff.
I mean, fortunately, the writers because it is the media that votes on MVP, the writers in the NBA tend to be, I don't want to say liberal because that can be misconstrued, but they certainly aren't the type of reporters, and they're not the type of media as a group that would be or are opposed to the BLM movement. So
it's not Fox News.
It's not Fox News voting, right?
Yeah.
It is Fox Sports though. Yeah. So okay, if we then move the argument back to the court itself, even if we just look at the numbers or team performance, sometimes I feel like the criteria changes. As I mentioned, sometimes people will look at two candidates and say, okay, they're both putting up great numbers, but this player has a worse team, so they deserve the MVP. Like in 2015, when it was something of a close race between Curry and Harden. I think Harden's numbers were slightly better. Curry was playing less minutes, but Curry got the award because his team had a better record, despite Harden having a weaker supporting cast. And I think actually that year was one of the years when the players had their own awards, and they give the award to James Harden. What do we think about situations like that, where it's an on-court argument, but you have two candidates, similar numbers, but different situations? Do you guys lean towards team record, or do you lean towards, if you took both stars off their team, whose team would perform the worst?
It's a really, I've always found this kind of the toughest thing. And I feel like sort of narratives get built up around sort of the different teams and the different players.
They absolutely do.
To support what people think. It's really hard to adjust. I kind of like it as the individual award. I think there should be other team awards, essentially, especially defensively, because it's too hard to make those sort of theoretical arguments. If you take Curry out of the Golden State Warriors, or if you change the Golden State Warriors style of play or something like that, how would he fare? You know, it's kind of, it's a bit nonsensical.
It's the same argument when somebody says, well, if that guy wasn't injured on that team, they would have won the title. It's like, well, we don't know. Like, he was injured. Like, you know, especially like this, I never understood the argument saying, oh, well, they were missing that player and that player. Well, yeah, that's just how it was. And it's just the same thing with me when you say, oh, let's plug that guy out of a team and just put it on another team. It's difficult. I don't know. It's like you say, it's one of the hardest arguments. I think to me, if you're being honest with yourself, it almost doesn't matter about the stats. It's almost like your preference, the type of player you prefer. It's almost, I think when you vote for the MVP, you're almost putting yourself in place of, like, you're the GM. Who would I start? Who would I want on my team first? Like, it's almost you're back at school and you got to pick your football team. Like, who do you go? Who's your first pick?
Is it that?
I think that's almost the same. Sometimes I feel like because it's with Giannis and LeBron now, it's like both of them deserve it. If you look at it,
yeah.
Giannis, because he's maintained the same level statistically, and the same, you know, even his team, they maintained the same level at the previous season. So you're like, okay, well, he was MVP last season. He's got the same. He's improved in a lot of ways. Yeah, you gotta give it to him. And LeBron, I think the thing with the story of LeBron is that he's been there for like 25 years now. Like he's had his goal, you know. So in terms of narrative, that's kind of what's deserved, you know, played against him, was that literally he's got a bunch of MVP titles, he's got a bunch of NBA titles. Like, you don't need it anymore. Giannis is coming up. He's going to be the new face, or he's the new face of the NBA. Who do you give it to? You know, and then also if you think, well, if I start a team tomorrow, who do I go with, and who do I build around? Like,
yeah, and I think
chances
that's
are Giannis.
But then, I mean, going forwards, obviously. But okay, if we change the question from who would I build around to who would I want on my team in a single series, 7-game series, would you take Giannis over LeBron?
I don't know. No, I don't think. I don't think.
No
I would.
way.
I don't think
No
I would.
way.
I don't think
Exactly.
Look
And
where
that-
we are right now, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And should that matter? Should that matter?
No, it. What?
See,
This is the
that's
thing,
why it's
because
difficult.
I've always, for me, Harden, Giannis have weaknesses to their game that don't affect them as much in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the whole who should I go into this with kind of negates the performance that they've had throughout the season, which is what the award should be on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Harden's play, but I think he deserved it for the season that he had when Curry got it over him and he got it from the players, because it was incredible what he was doing, and the team was nothing without him. Effectively, like it was quite clear to see that it was just about him, and I don't like that style of basketball. I don't want, like, it's not what I want to encourage, essentially. But if you're talking MVP, it was like an Iverson season, right? It was one of those.
Yeah.
So I can't deny it from those players like that.
It's I don't know. It's almost, to me, it feels like every season you pick a player it's I don't know how to explain it. It's like there shouldn't be this mold where you should, all these criteria when you should say, okay, these tick that box, they've ticked that box. I don't know. It seems to me like it depends, where they are in their career and how the team is doing. I think there's the element of team also that is quite important. Is that if Harden was on team, Steph Curry, let's say this year, had he not been injured all the time, and let's say he's averaging 45 a game, shooting 60% threes, like, but the Warriors are bottom in the West, like, do you give that to him?
Well, clearly not, because he didn't
Clearly
average
not.
a triple-double for the season, right?
Freaking Westbrook had it, so anyone can be MVP. I don't know. It's a bit weird. That's what I'm saying. It's I think deep down it depends on who's the favorite. In terms of all the journalists that are voting, like, who's your favorite? Who's for you's got the best stats? Who do you think is influencing the team in a positive way, and who has got the best story around them?
Yeah.
And I think at the moment in the US, it's maybe more likable to be a Giannis fan than a LeBron, in terms of like the narrative around Giannis, which is guy comes from from Greece, and he had nothing coming up, and he's got a bunch of brothers that are in the NBA with him, and all that stuff that I guess that works well.
Yeah.
And they were on course for like a 70-something win season.
I think they started to slip off that kind of pace towards the end.
I think they were like between 65 and 68 towards the end,
Yeah.
when they were slipping up.
Yeah. Giannis got injured towards the end. But the thing with this year's race is it was only a 3.3 game difference between the Lakers record and the Bucks record when the season ended.
But the narrative had already been built up throughout the whole year.
Exactly. And my issue with this whole conversation is the fact that it changes. It really, really bothers me that, like, Westbrook can be given the award because he averaged a triple-double for the season, and then he averages one the next year and he doesn't get the award, right? For me, it's kind of like, make your mind up. Like, what are we voting on?
Mm-hmm.
I would like for there to be criteria. I understand why there isn't, and it's flexible because it allows for discussion and it allows for debate. But it just kind of bothers me when someone does something historic, someone else does something historic, and one of them gets the MVP for doing something historic and the other one doesn't. Or Steve Nash wins his second MVP because the team was worse, but they had a good record still. So they just give him another one, right? But then if LeBron does that, he doesn't get another one. Someone else gets it for another reason. Or like, it's just like, it almost trivializes the award. And one interesting solution that I saw a few weeks back, I think it was over the break with on Reddit, there was a poster who, sorry, I don't have your name to hand because I didn't expect to talk about this part. He did an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference MVP.
Yeah, that's
I think that's important to do.
And what that did was it, as much as sometimes the two candidates will be from the same conference, if you're splitting or doubling the number of people that receive credit at the end of the year, you tend to be able to sort of catch some of these debates.
Sure.
So in this case, in the case this year, both LeBron and Giannis would receive recognition for the years that they had.
So we used to have something similar in the French basketball league where they used to give an MVP for French players and one for foreigners, because just to kind of make sure that French players would not be kind of giving up before the season started, right? You'd be like, shit, now the guys from the US is going to smash everything.
Yeah.
Give the French guys a chance. I understand.
Exactly. Give us a chance.
Yeah.
But it did work, and it was a good thing. I think they stopped it a while back. But
right.
I think once they had it, it was really good because then it added value to, you gave recognition to another player that probably would have finished third or fourth in the votes or second, whatever. But they were also deserving of an award. 14th. But they were deserving of an award too, so I don't think it's a bad idea having an Eastern and Western.
Yeah, it was interesting. They showed the totals, and I think like Kobe went from having one MVP to like 4, and Shaq went from having one MVP to like 4, and it just sort of highlighted some of those players that you think, how does this guy not have more more MVP awards? And it's just because, they didn't have the better narrative that year, or there was someone that was just slightly ahead of them. And they with this method, it sort of made more sense. You could sort of rank players, all-time players, by how many MVPs they had, because more of their seasons were recognized. So yeah, like there was a balance between Kobe and Shaq, and I think all-time, roughly, most people would argue they're in similar places on their all-time rank, whether that's at the back end of the 10 or if that's just outside the 10, but they're close to each other in terms of their career and how they're seen. And then LeBron, I think, had 9 or 10, and Jordan had 9 or 10, right? And that just then goes to show, okay, this is why the GOAT debate is the GOAT debate.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I agree. I agree with LeBron a bit. That it's kind of odd that there isn't that sort of set criteria, and it's not closer. You'd think that if everybody's using different criteria to actually make that vote, surely it wouldn't be that far apart, because I don't think anybody would say that Giannis was like far and away the greatest. Yeah, like it doesn't really make sense to me. So, and I think the East-West thing is a really good point, because I think if Milwaukee was in the West, they're not going to have that record. And then if they don't have that record, is Giannis actually MVP? Probably not.
It makes a whole lot of sense to me that they should have one for each conference. I think I don't know if there's a way, or if there's anything they can change for the MVP vote and how it's conducted and how it's awarded. But I think definitely the one thing they need to look into is the timing, of releasing the news. Like, why? Because when is the vote actually taking place? It's well before the end of the regular season, isn't it? It's
no,
quite a few games.
The football, they do that. Like the Premier League does that. They start voting in like January. It's like the season's not even close to over yet.
But in terms
in the NBA, you have to hand in your ballot by the end of the regular season.
Okay,
it's like midnight on the last day of the game of the regular season.
So I don't know if they want to switch that to a couple games before. I don't know, because you would have made your mind up well before the end of the regular season.
Game.
Yeah. Ooh, 80. Let me see 2 more games. I just want to be sure. No, I'm sure they can do like 2 weeks before. And what's taking so long to freaking count those votes?
Listen, they could stop the voting on the last game of the season, and they could give out the award the next day. They could do it. No, it's done electronically.
It's done.
There is no counting. It's done electronically.
Exactly. So what's stopping them from making sure, like, okay, you've got you every year, every season, there's pretty much 2, 3, 4 players that are on the same line, starting line to be MVP. So who's gonna be in the running. You pretty much know that every season now is gonna be LeBron, Giannis, Kawhi, Curry, if healthy, right? But why don't you make sure that you, because having those MVP award ceremonies also is the shit. I'm not gonna watch that. But like, if you tell me, okay, last home court game, there's the MVP trophy ceremony before the game. In front of your crowd, you give them the trophy. It's fucking awesome. It looks good. It's the last game of the season at home. Bang, is the guy in front of his crowd. Why can't we do that? I'm sure that surely that makes a lot more sense than having them between round 1 and 2 in Vegas.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
It's not that hard to, it's not paper voting anymore. You're not waiting for the mail to be delivered, like you said. So it's easy fix.
I think it's to do with media cycles, though, right? Like that's what the whole ceremony thing was to try and get viewers and have a whole thing. As soon as when the season's finished, or even the run up to the end of the season, they're pushing the playoffs and the matchups and everything like that.
But that's
they try to.
That's why I don't almost, to me, it's still, I understand the whole media, like the entire almost circus around it, and that makes sense. Yeah, but it's like you've got usually it's a week. 5 days a week before between the end of the season and the start of the playoffs?
No, it's not normally that long. It's about 3 days.
Oh, 3 days. Okay.
Yeah, it's not long.
Even in 3 days. So it's. I think to me, it's even justifying my idea even more. It's like do it on the last home game of the guy who's going to win it. And then it's done, dusted. Nobody, like, you can actually move on to the playoffs. Like, you don't even need to think about the regular season anymore. It's just like move on straight into the playoffs. Sell your shit. Sell the playoffs.
Yeah, I like that, because they don't. The last few games of the season, or the last few weeks of the season, even if you're not fighting for playoff position, then you're pretty much not even. There's a lot of low effort basketball going towards the end when you're not playing for anything. And I think having an awards on the last day it's always going to be a top seeded team, right? At the last home game, in front of the home crowd, you would get fans fighting over tickets to be there when the player lifts their award. Their teammates will be there, and I think that would make for a great atmosphere.
And then when you start watching the playoff basketball, like you tend to forget about the regular season.
I mean, it's in the past. It's in the past.
It's like especially in the media in the US. I mean, everyone, like, we all say it. We all say, "Oh, look, now it's a different sport. It's a different season now."
82,
Well,
82 game players and 16 game players.
Yeah. And you end up with situations like this where it's Giannis is getting it after he's been bounced, and it's sort of like, I don't think that's fun for Giannis.
It does two things to me. It devalues it. Well, it's not fun for Giannis. So as a player, you're like, well, no, it's too late. But also sort of devalues the meaning of the MVP title.
Yeah,
which is like, well, look at your MVP; it's not even in there anymore. Whereas you give that on the last day, or okay, the season is slightly different. You give it on the first game of the playoffs, for example, for the Bucks, whatever. That's it. It's out of the way now. Whatever happens after that is just fair enough.
It's playoffs.
Yeah.
I would also like a playoff MVP, but that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah.
So let's wrap things up there. Remember to like, share, subscribe, review the podcast on all platforms, preferably on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on social media at Grit and Grime Pod. So contact us on there. That's it for us. So from me, your host, David Sago, from Thomas Arnold.
Maps for life.
And from Michael Downey.
Good night.
We're out of here.